The boy was
Mom,
still alive when
is
they
Dad
pulled him out
okay?
of the river,
Oh,
and that
sweetie,
was the problem.
please tell
He
me.
coughed on the
I
concrete
can't.
while the paramedics pressed towels against the side of his skull. And Mara realized she had been holding her breath for so long that her lungs burned. The headlights from the overturned car flickered against the dark water below the bridge, and someone kept shouting her name, but she could not tell if it was her husband or a police officer. All she could see was her son's eyes, half open, confused, not accusing yet, but searching for her as if she had misplaced something important. "You said the brakes were fine," Daniel whispered beside her, his voice scraped thin by shock. "I checked them," she answered automatically, because that was what she had been saying for the last 10 minutes. "I checked them yesterday." The paramedic looked up at her, a flash of irritation crossing his face before he masked it with professional neutrality. "Ma'am, step back." She did not step back. She leaned closer instead, her fingers hovering over her son's wet hair without touching him. The water dripping from his clothes smelled faintly metallic, like blood diluted in rust, and she felt an irrational urge to wipe it away with her bare hands, as if she could erase the accident by removing its scent. Daniel grabbed her elbow. His grip was too tight. "You said you checked them." "I did," she repeated, but now the words felt like a stone in her mouth. Sirens cut through the night air in uneven waves, and for a moment she imagined the sound was coming from inside her skull. She remembered the afternoon sun glinting off the hood of the car when she had reversed it from the driveway, remembered the slight hesitation in the pedal, the way she had pressed harder and told herself it was nothing. She had meant to call the mechanic. She had meant to mention it to Daniel. Instead, she had told herself she was overreacting. "Mom?" her son croaked, and the single syllable split her open. "I'm here," she said immediately, though she was not sure what that meant anymore. He blinked slowly, as if trying to focus. Did I do something wrong?" Daniel made a broken sound, somewhere between a laugh and a sob. Mara felt something inside her collapse in silence. The question hung in the air, heavier than the smell of gasoline. She opened her mouth, but no answer came that would not be a lie. The paramedics lifted him onto the stretcher, and Mara followed as they rushed him toward the ambulance. She climbed inside without asking permission, her knees bruising against metal as the doors slammed shut. Daniel remained outside for a second too long, staring at the twisted railing of the bridge, and she wondered what he was thinking, whether he was calculating cost or blame. The ambulance lurched forward. A medic strapped an oxygen mask over her son's face. "He's conscious." "That's good," the medic said, but his tone suggested that good was a fragile word. Mara watched the monitor attached to her son's chest. The green line flickered with mechanical indifference. She had never hated a color so much. It seemed too calm, too steady, as if nothing irreversible had just happened. "Tell me what happened," the medic said without looking at her. "The brakes failed," she answered. "It was the simplest version, the cleanest." The medic nodded. "Were they inspected recently?" "Yes," she said. I looked at them." "You're a mechanic?" She shook her head. He did not say anything more, but the silence expanded. At the hospital, everything became fluorescent and cold. Nurses moved around her son with brisk efficiency. Forms were placed in her hands. Daniel appeared again, damp hair plastered to his forehead, eyes bloodshot. He did not touch her. "They're taking him for a scan," he said. She nodded, staring at the double doors that had swallowed their child. He asked if he did something wrong. Daniel's jaw tightened. He always asks that. It was true. When a glass shattered, when a teacher called home, when Daniel raised his voice, their son had a habit of assuming fault. Mara had once found it endearing. Now it felt like an indictment. Daniel leaned against the wall. "You said you checked them." "I know what I said," she snapped, sharper than she intended. He flinched, but only slightly. "Did you really check them?" The question was quiet, almost gentle. That made it worse. "I pressed the pedal," she said. "It felt different, but I thought—" "You thought what?" "That it was just the weather," she said, hating herself for how small it sounded. Daniel closed his eyes. The weather. She wanted to hit him. She wanted him to shout instead. The restraint in his voice felt like a ledger being updated. A column under her name. Hours passed in fragments. A doctor finally approached them, face composed into professional sympathy. "Your son has a concussion and a fracture in his left arm. There's some swelling in the brain, but we're monitoring it. He's lucky." "Lucky." Mara repeated the word silently. It scraped against her thoughts like broken glass. "Can we see him?" Daniel asked. "Yes, but keep it brief." They entered the room together. Their son lay in the hospital bed, arm encased in plaster, a bandage wrapped around his head. He looked smaller, diminished. The machines around him hummed softly, as if whispering secrets about his fragility. "Milo." Mara said softly. His eyes fluttered open. He smiled weakly. I didn't mean to scare you. Daniel let out a shaky breath. You didn't do anything. Milo looked between them, sensing something unspoken. Did the car break? Mara felt the room tilt. Yes. Is Dad mad? Daniel stepped closer to the bed. No one is mad. Milo's gaze shifted back to Mara. You said you fixed it. The words were not accusatory. They were simple, factual. That made them unbearable. I tried, she whispered. He studied her face as if measuring the weight of that answer. Then his eyes closed again, exhaustion dragging him under. Outside the room, Daniel leaned against the wall once more. You told him you fixed it? I didn't want him to worry, she said. So you lied. I made a mistake. He laughed softly, but there was no humor in it. That's one way to put it. She felt heat rise in her chest. He's alive. Yes, Daniel said. He's alive. The repetition did not comfort her. It felt like a reminder that survival was not the same as forgiveness. They drove home separately the next morning. Mara entered the house first. The silence inside was oppressive. Milo's backpack lay on the kitchen chair where he had dropped it before they left for the drive. She touched it, as if it might recoil from her. Her phone buzzed. A message from Daniel. I'm staying at the hospital tonight. No explanation. No accusation. Just distance. She sank into a chair and stared at the refrigerator door, where a photo of the three of them was pinned with a magnet shaped like a sunflower. They were smiling. She remembered that day. A picnic by the lake. She had packed too much food. Daniel had teased her. Milo had run in circles until he collapsed in laughter. She had believed then that vigilance was unnecessary. That love was protection enough. Her mind replayed the moment on the bridge, the pedal sinking lower than it should. Milo's laughter in the back seat, Daniel turning his head at the sound of her sharp intake of breath, the realization blooming too late. She pressed her palms against her eyes. I checked them, she murmured again. But now the sentence sounded like a confession. The doorbell rang. She froze. It was Officer Ramirez. He removed his cap as she opened the door. Mrs. Keller, I need to ask a few follow-up questions about the accident. Of course, she said, stepping aside. He sat at the kitchen table. His notebook remained closed on the surface between them. There were no skid marks on the bridge. I told you, she said. The brakes failed. He nodded slowly. The vehicle will be examined. We'll know more soon. She swallowed. Are you implying something? I'm gathering facts, he said calmly. It's routine. Routine. Did anyone else drive the car recently? He asked. No. Any recent repairs? I thought I fixed it, she said before she could stop herself. He looked at her carefully. You're not a mechanic. No. What did you do? She hesitated. The memory felt suddenly incriminating. I watched a video online. It said the issue might be air in the brake lines. I bled them. With proper equipment? She did not answer immediately. Mara, he said gently, dropping the formal tone. This is important. I followed the instructions, she insisted. Did you test it thoroughly? I pressed the pedal. His silence was louder than any accusation. Daniel returned home late that night to shower. He found her sitting at the kitchen table, the officer's questions echoing in her mind. They're examining the car, she said. They should, he replied. You think I'm responsible. He looked at her for a long moment. I think you were careless. The word hit harder than she expected. I was trying to save money, she said. You said we needed to cut back. I didn't say fix critical safety systems yourself. You said we couldn't afford another big repair. I said we needed to be careful, he snapped. Not reckless. She stood up so abruptly the chair scraped loudly against the tile. Reckless? I was trying to help. Help who? He shot back. Your pride? The accusation stunned her. What does that mean? You hate asking for help, he said. You hate admitting you don't know something. That's not true. It is, he said quietly. And our son almost died because of it. The sentence hung between them like a verdict. She wanted to argue, to dismantle his logic piece by piece. Instead, she felt something colder settle in her chest, a realization that this was not just about the accident. It was about every small moment she had insisted on handling alone, every time she had dismissed Daniel's caution as pessimism. Are you leaving? She asked suddenly. He hesitated. I don't know. The honesty in his voice terrified her more than anger would have. The next days blurred into hospital visits and whispered conversations. Milo remained stable, but distant. He watched them with wary eyes, as if sensing the fracture beneath their words. Did you fight? He asked one afternoon when Daniel stepped out to answer a call. No, she said quickly. You look like you did. She forced a smile. Adults talk loudly sometimes. He considered that. Was it about me? The question felt like a knife turning slowly. It's never about you, she said. But even she heard the falseness. He nodded, but his gaze lingered. Later, Daniel confronted her in the hallway. He asked me if we're getting divorced. Her breath caught. What did you say? I said no, he replied. I don't lie as easily as you do. She flinched. You think this is funny? I think this is real. They stood there, inches apart, the hospital corridor humming with distant activity. What do you want from me? She demanded. I want you to admit you were wrong, he said. I've said that. No, he replied. You've said you made a mistake. That's different. She stared at him. How? A mistake is accidental, he said. What you did was a choice. The distinction hollowed her out. That night, she lay awake in the empty bed at home. The house creaked in unfamiliar ways. She imagined the car in some impound lot, its metal cooling, evidence of her decision sealed inside it. She imagined Milo years from now, remembering the bridge, remembering her assurances that everything was fine. Her phone buzzed again, a message from an unknown number. We need to talk about the repairs. It's important. Her stomach dropped. She stared at the screen, pulse racing. The message felt like a door opening into a darker room she had not yet entered. She typed back, Who is this? The reply came quickly. Someone who knows you didn't bleed the brakes correctly. Her hands began to tremble. Another message followed. If the investigation goes deeper, it won't just be about negligence. She felt the floor tilt beneath her, as if the bridge were collapsing all over again. She typed, What do you mean? The typing indicator appeared, then vanished, then appeared again. You skipped a step. Her mind raced through the video she had watched, the instructions, the tools she had improvised, the moment she had rushed because Milo was asking for help with homework and Daniel was late from work. What step? She wrote. The reply came slower this time, the one that keeps air from re-entering the system. Her throat tightened. She remembered. A clamp she did not have. A caution she had dismissed because the comment section said it was optional. Optional. Her phone buzzed again. If that detail comes out, insurance might refuse coverage, and the police might reconsider how they classify the accident. She felt a wave of nausea. Who are you? She demanded. There was a pause long enough for dread to solidify. Then, the final message of the night arrived. I was in the car behind you on the bridge, and I saw everything. Mara stared at the message until the words blurred into white light against the dark screen. Her mind replayed the scene again, but now from a different angle, from a pair of unseen eyes watching her hesitate before the turn, watching the car drift slightly before the pedal failed entirely. She tried to remember if she had noticed headlights in the rearview mirror. She remembered light. She remembered panic. She did not remember a witness. Her fingers hovered above the keyboard. What did you see? The reply took longer this time, long enough for her imagination to begin constructing horrors on its own, long enough for her to imagine the police returning with new questions, long enough for her to picture Milo learning, one day, that his mother had not only made a mistake, but hidden it. I saw you pump the brakes before the curve, the message finally read. I saw the car jerk. I saw you look at your husband like you already knew. Her throat tightened. She had looked at Daniel. She remembered that moment with terrifying clarity. His eyebrows had lifted in confusion just before the guardrail rushed toward them. The look had not been accusation. Not yet. It had been trust dissolving in real time. You're mistaken, she typed, though her pulse told her she was not. No, came the reply. I also saw you get out after the crash and check the front wheel instead of your son first. The air left her lungs. That detail had been private, buried under chaos. She had stepped out of the car in a daze, her ears ringing, and her first instinct had been to stare at the wheel, as if proof of mechanical failure might absolve her instantly. It had taken her several seconds to remember Milo in the back seat. Those seconds now felt like a confession. Who are you? She typed again, her thumb slipping on the screen. Someone who knows this wasn't just bad luck. Her mind raced through possibilities. A stranger seeking leverage. A person looking for money. Or worse, someone who genuinely believed she had endangered her family deliberately. The thought made her stomach twist. What do you want? She wrote. There was no answer for several minutes. She paced the kitchen, each step echoing in the silence. She imagined Daniel reading the same messages, his suspicion crystallizing into certainty. She imagined Milo overhearing whispers about police and insurance. Finally, the phone buzzed. I want you to tell the truth before someone else does. The words struck harder than a demand for cash ever could have. They were not a threat. They were a directive. She typed slowly. I told the truth. The brakes failed. Another pause. You tampered with them. The word tampered glowed on the screen like an accusation carved in stone. It implied intent. It implied recklessness beyond error. "I tried to fix them," she wrote. "That's not the same. You didn't know what you were doing." She felt anger, flare, defensive, and desperate. "That doesn't make me a criminal." No reply came. She stood there for a long time, listening to the refrigerator hum. The house felt different now, as if it too were waiting for consequences. She imagined Officer Ramirez examining the car, finding evidence of amateur interference. She imagined the witness stepping forward, offering their version of events. When Daniel returned from the hospital again, the next evening, she told him about the messages. She did not soften them. She did not omit the detail about the wheel. He listened without interrupting. His face remained unreadable. "So someone saw you," he said finally. "Yes. And they think you're lying. They think I was careless." "You were careless," he said, "but there was no heat in it this time. Only exhaustion." "They're threatening to tell the police," she added. Daniel's jaw tightened. "Are they asking for money?" "No." He frowned. "Then what?" "They want me to tell the truth." A muscle in his cheek twitched. "What truth?" "That I tried to fix the brakes myself." He exhaled slowly. "You already told the officer that." "I didn't tell him I skipped a step." The silence that followed was suffocating. "You skipped a step," he repeated. "I didn't have the right clamp," she said. The video said it was recommended, but some comments said it wasn't necessary. "And you believed the comments." "I believed I could handle it," she snapped, then immediately regretted the tone. Daniel stared at her. "Our son was in that car." "I know." He laughed softly, but it was a broken sound. "Do you? Because sometimes I think you're still arguing." The cruelty of the statement stunned her. "That's unfair." "Is it?" She felt something crack inside her. "What do you want me to say? That I meant for this to happen?" "No," he said. "I want you to stop minimizing it." She looked away. The kitchen window reflected her face back at her, pale and drawn. She barely recognized herself. "If the police find out you did the repair incorrectly, they might classify it as negligence," Daniel continued. "Insurance might refuse coverage. We could lose the house." The words landed heavily. The house, the mortgage, the fragile structure of their life. "I was trying to save money," she whispered. "And now we might lose everything." His voice did not rise, but it cut deeper than shouting would have. The next day, Officer Ramirez called. "The preliminary report on the vehicle is in," he said. Mara's fingers tightened around the phone. "And? There were irregularities in the brake system," he said carefully. "Evidence of recent interference." Her heart pounded so loudly, she barely heard the rest. "Mrs. Keller," he continued, "did you attempt to repair the brakes yourself?" "Yes," she said, her voice barely audible. "Did you follow proper procedure?" She closed her eyes. The witness's message echoed in her mind. "Tell the truth before someone else does." "I tried," she said. "That's not what I asked." Her silence answered for her. "We'll need a formal statement," he said. After she hung up, she felt strangely calm. The dread had transformed into inevitability. She texted the unknown number. "The police know." The reply came almost instantly. "Good, good." The simplicity of the response infuriated her. "Who are you to judge me?" she typed. There was a longer pause this time. "I lost my sister to a preventable accident." The sentence shifted something inside her. The anger faltered. "A brake failure too," the message continued. The mechanic skipped a step. Said it was fine. Her breath caught. The connection felt almost mythic, as if the universe had assigned her a personal witness shaped by tragedy. "I'm sorry," she typed. Sorry doesn't change what happened to her. "No," she whispered to herself. "It doesn't." Daniel found her later that night, sitting on the edge of Milo's bed at the hospital. Milo was asleep, his cast propped on a pillow. "They want a statement," she said. He nodded. "I know. They called me too. And they asked if I knew you were doing the repair." Her stomach twisted. "What did you say?" I said no. The relief she felt was immediate and shameful. "They asked if I trusted you," he added. Her chest tightened. "And?" He looked at their sleeping son before answering. "I said I thought I did." The fracture between them widened. "I never meant to hurt him," she said, her voice trembling. "I know," Daniel replied. "That's what makes it worse." She stared at him, confused. "If you had meant to, I could hate you," he said. "But this is just you." The words settled like dust in her lungs. "You think this is who I am?" she asked. "I think you believe you're more capable than you are," he said. "And you don't see the risk until it's too late." She wanted to argue, but the memory of the missing clamp silenced her. Days later, Milo was discharged. The house felt smaller with him back in it, as if his injury occupied physical space. He moved cautiously, eyes flicking between his parents whenever they spoke. "Are we poor now?" he asked one evening while Mara helped him with homework. She froze. "Why would you think that?" "I heard Dad on the phone," he said. "He said something about insurance." Her throat tightened. "We're fine." He studied her carefully. "You said the brakes were fine too." The sentence was quiet. Not angry. Just observant. She felt the world tilt again. "Milo, I'm not mad," he said quickly. "I just want to know if I should be scared." The honesty in his voice broke something in her that had been clinging to denial. "You don't have to be scared," she said, though she knew fear had already taken root in him. That night, she met the witness in person. He had suggested a coffee shop near the bridge. She almost refused, but curiosity and guilt pulled her there. He was younger than she expected, mid-30s, pale, tired eyes. "You're not what I imagined," he said as she sat down. "What did you imagine?" she asked. "Someone defensive." "I am," she replied. He nodded slightly. "My sister was 16. The mechanic cut corners, said the part was optional. She trusted him." Mara swallowed. "I didn't mean to cut corners." "But you did." "Yes." The admission felt like stepping off a ledge. "I don't want money," he said. "I don't want revenge. I just don't want you to hide behind words like accident." She stared at him. "What would you call it?" "A choice with consequences." The phrase echoed Daniel's earlier distinction. She felt surrounded by mirrors, reflecting the same truth from different angles. "What if I tell the police everything?" she asked. "They'll decide what to do," he said. "But at least it won't be a lie. And if that ruins my family?" He looked at her steadily. "My family was ruined by a lie." The weight of that settled heavily between them. When she returned home, Daniel was waiting. "Where were you?" he asked. She hesitated, then told him. "You met him?" Daniel's voice was sharp. "Yes." "Why?" "Because he's right." Daniel stared at her. "About what?" "That this wasn't just bad luck." Silence filled the room. "What are you going to do?" he asked finally. "I'm going to tell them everything." He ran a hand through his hair. "That could cost us everything." "I know. And you're willing to risk that?" She looked toward the hallway where Milo's room was. "I already risked him." Daniel closed his eyes. The next morning, she sat across from Officer Ramirez and gave a full statement. She described the video, the missing clamp, the step she had considered optional. He listened without interruption. When she finished, he sighed. "This complicates things." "I know. There may be charges," he said. "At minimum, civil liability." She nodded. The words felt distant, almost abstract. "Why tell me now?" he asked. She thought of the witness, of Daniel, of Milo asking if he should be scared. "Because it's the truth," she said. As she left the station, her phone buzzed again. "Thank you," the witness wrote. She did not reply. That evening, Daniel received a call from the insurance company. His face drained of color as he listened. "They're reviewing the claim," he said after hanging up. "They mentioned possible negligence." She nodded. "I expected that. And if they deny it? We'll figure it out." He laughed bitterly. "You're still saying that. What else can I say?" He looked at her for a long moment. "You could say you're scared." The word hung in the air. "I am," she admitted. It was the first time she had said it aloud. Daniel sat down heavily. "So am I." The confession did not mend anything. It simply exposed the raw edges more clearly. That night, Milo woke from a nightmare, crying. Mara rushed into his room. "I dreamed the car went over the bridge again," he said, his voice shaking. "But this time, you weren't there." Her heart clenched. "I would never leave you." He looked at her with a seriousness beyond his years. "You did." The accusation was not loud. It was factual. "You got out and looked at the wheel," he continued. "I saw you." The room seemed to shrink. "I was confused," she whispered. "I thought you were mad at me," he said. The memory slammed into her. The seconds she had spent staring at the damage, trying to confirm her innocence before checking on her child. "I wasn't mad," she said, tears finally spilling over. "I was scared." He studied her face. "Are you still?" "Yes." He nodded slowly. "Me too." She pulled him into her arms carefully, mindful of the cast. He did not resist, but he did not cling either. There was a new distance in his embrace, a caution. As she lay awake later, listening to the house breathe around her, she realized the accident had not ended on the bridge. It had only begun there. The consequences were unfolding in quieter, more devastating ways. Her phone remained silent that night. The witness had said what he needed to say, but the silence did not feel like relief. It felt like the pause before another collapse. 3 days later, the letter arrived. It was thin, official, the insurance company's logo stamped in the corner like a verdict already decided. Daniel opened it at the kitchen counter while Mara stood across from him, gripping the back of a chair so hard her knuckles whitened. He read the first paragraph silently, then the second. His jaw tightened. "Well?" she asked. "They're denying full coverage," he said flatly. "They're citing negligence due to unauthorized mechanical interference." The words felt clinical, detached, as if the accident had happened to strangers. Mara nodded slowly. "How much?" "They'll cover medical expenses under health insurance," he said, "but not the car. And they're investigating liability for structural damage to the bridge railing." Her stomach dropped. "That could be more than we have." The air thickened between them. Daniel set the letter down carefully, as if sudden movement might shatter something fragile. "We might have to sell. The house? What else do we have?" She looked around the kitchen. The table they bought secondhand when Milo was born. The small crack in the tile near the sink that she had always meant to fix. Every object felt suddenly temporary. "This is my fault," she said. Daniel didn't answer immediately. He walked to the window and stared out at the driveway where the car used to sit. "Yes," he said finally. "It is." There was no cruelty in his tone now, just acknowledgement. The honesty hurt more than blame ever had. Milo overheard them that night. She knew because he stopped asking about the future. He stopped talking about summer plans. When she suggested they might visit the lake again someday, he changed the subject. Children measure safety by consistency. She could see the shift in him, the way he watched her more closely when she did simple things, when she cooked, when she crossed the street, as if calculating whether she might skip another step. "Can I check the stove?" he asked one evening after she turned it off. She froze. "Why?" "Just to make sure." The request was gentle, not accusing, but it landed heavily. "Of course," she said, stepping aside. He walked over and examined the knobs carefully, turning them slightly back and forth before nodding. "It's off," he said. She smiled faintly. "Thank you." Later, in their bedroom, Daniel said quietly, "He doesn't trust you." The statement was observational, not hostile. That made it unbearable. "He's scared," she replied. "He's careful," Daniel corrected. The distinction sliced cleanly. A week later, Officer Ramirez called again. "The district attorney has reviewed the case," he said. "They're not pursuing criminal charges." Mara exhaled for the first time in what felt like days. "However," he continued, "you are being cited for negligent operation of a vehicle resulting in injury. It's a misdemeanor. There will be a fine and mandatory safety education." The relief curdled. "Will this be on my record?" she asked. "Yes." The words settled heavily. After she hung up, she texted the witness. "They're not charging me criminally." There was a pause before his reply. "That's good." It didn't feel good. It felt like being marked. Daniel read the citation notice without comment. He signed the paperwork where required. "Do you hate me?" she asked suddenly. He looked up. "I don't know." The honesty was worse than anger. "I don't wake up thinking about leaving," he said. "But I also don't wake up feeling safe." "With me?" "Yes." The word hung between them like a verdict still being read. "I told the truth," she said weakly. "You did," he acknowledged. "And I respect that. But telling the truth after the damage is done doesn't undo the damage." She had no answer. The safety course was held in a bland municipal building with flickering fluorescent lights. She sat in a folding chair among strangers who had made different mistakes. Speeding, driving under influence, texting behind the wheel. When it was her turn to explain why she was there, her voice trembled. "I tried to repair my own brakes," she said. "I skipped a step." There were murmurs, a few disapproving glances. One man shook his head. The instructor nodded gravely. "Mechanical systems don't forgive assumptions." The sentence echoed in her mind long after the session ended. That night, Daniel received another call, this time from his mother. "She heard about the accident," he said after hanging up. "From who?" "Ramirez's wife knows her friend." The web of small-town connections tightened. "What did she say?" Mara asked. "She asked if you've always been impulsive." The words stung. "And what did you say?" He hesitated. "I said you're passionate. Is that better?" He didn't answer. The house grew quieter over the next month. Not because they fought loudly. They didn't. The silence was worse. Conversations became logistical. Bills. Appointments. Milo's therapy sessions, which the pediatrician recommended after the nightmares persisted. During one session, the therapist asked Milo to draw the accident. He drew the bridge, the car, 3 stick figures inside. The therapist pointed gently. "Who is this?" "That's Mom," Milo said. "And what is she doing?" He hesitated. Then he drew a small circle near the front wheel. "She's looking there." "Before checking on you?" Milo nodded. Mara watched through the observation window, her chest tightening. Later, in the car ride home, Milo asked, "Are you mad that I told her that?" "No," she said quickly. "I'm glad you did. Even if it makes you look bad?" The question was innocent, honest. "Yes," she whispered, because that was the truth now. Looking bad was the least of it. A month later, they put the house on the market. The sign in the yard felt like a public confession. Neighbors slowed their cars slightly when passing. Some offered polite sympathy. Others offered cautious distance. Daniel handled most of the logistics. She noticed he stopped consulting her on small decisions. Paint colors, listing price, showing times. "I can help," she said once. He didn't look up from his laptop. "I've got it." The words echoed the unspoken truth. "You've done enough." The witness texted her again one evening. "How are you holding up?" She stared at the message. It was the first time he had asked about her. "We're selling the house," she replied. There was a long pause. "I didn't want that." "What did you want?" she typed. "For you to understand." "I do," she wrote. "More than you know." He didn't respond. The house sold quickly. Below, asking price. The night before they moved, Mara walked through each room slowly. The indent in the carpet where the couch used to sit. The mark on the wall where Milo had measured his height each year. Daniel found her in the empty living room. "Regretting it?" he asked. "Yes." "Which part?" "All of it." He nodded. They moved into a smaller rental across town. Milo's new room was half the size of the old one. He didn't complain. "Is this because of the breaks?" he asked quietly while unpacking. "Yes," she said. He absorbed that silently. "Will we move again?" he asked. "I don't know." The uncertainty hung between them like fog. One night, weeks later, Daniel sat at the small kitchen table and said, "I've been thinking." Her stomach tightened. "I don't think I can keep pretending this is normal." "What does that mean?" "It means I don't know if I can rebuild trust with you." The words were steady, not angry. That made them final in a way shouting never could be. "We're still here," she said desperately. "We're still a family." "Are we?" he asked. She felt the floor tilt. "I look at you," he continued, "and I see someone who thought she knew better than everyone else. I see someone who gambled with our son's life." "I wasn't gambling," she whispered. "It feels like you were." Silence pressed in. "Are you leaving?" she asked again. The same question from weeks ago, but heavier now. "I don't know," he said. "But I need space." The phrase landed like a blade. "For how long?" "I don't know." The repetition was unbearable. Milo sensed the shift immediately. Children always do. "Is Dad sleeping somewhere else?" he asked when Daniel moved his things into the spare room. "For a while," Mara said. "Because of me?" "No," she said firmly. "Never because of you." He studied her carefully, as if testing the reliability of her words. "Because of the breaks?" he asked. She nodded. He looked down at his cast, now replaced with a brace. "I wish I didn't get hurt." The simplicity of it shattered her. "So do I," she whispered. "But then maybe you and Dad wouldn't be like this." The guilt twisted deeper. Daniel began staying out later. Not dramatically, not with declarations, just subtle distance. Work dinners, long drives. One evening, he said, "I met with a counselor." "For you?" she asked. "For us," he replied. "If you want." She hesitated only a second. "Yes." The counselor's office was quiet and neutral. Soft chairs, muted art. "What brings you here?" the counselor asked gently. Daniel spoke first. "Trust." Mara felt the word like a bruise. The sessions were uncomfortable. The counselor asked about patterns, about control, about fear. "Why did you feel you had to fix the brakes yourself?" she asked Mara. "Because we couldn't afford the repair," Mara said. "That's the practical answer," the counselor replied. "What's the emotional one?" Mara hesitated. "Because I didn't want to need help." "From whom?" "Anyone." The admission felt like peeling back skin. Daniel watched her quietly. "What does needing help mean to you?" the counselor asked. "It means I failed," Mara whispered. The room fell silent. Daniel spoke softly. "And in trying not to fail, you did." The statement was not cruel. It was weary. Session after session, the accident became less about mechanics and more about identity. About pride disguised as competence. About fear disguised as independence. But understanding did not equal repair. One evening, after a particularly tense session, Daniel said in the parking lot, "I'm tired." "Of me?" she asked. "Of carrying this." "What do you want?" He looked at her for a long moment. "I want to feel like I can trust you with our son's life." The words were quiet, devastating. "I would never hurt him," she said. "I know," he replied. "But I also know you think you know better." The pattern was undeniable. Weeks passed. Milo's nightmares lessened but did not disappear. He still checked appliances, still watched her when she drove, even though Daniel insisted on handling most of it now. One afternoon, while driving him to school because Daniel was sick, she felt his eyes on her. "Are the brakes okay?" he asked. "Yes," she said automatically. He looked at her for a second longer than necessary. "Did someone else check?" "Yes." The relief in his posture was visible. It wasn't her reassurance that comforted him. It was the involvement of someone else. That realization cut deeper than any fine or citation. That night, she sat alone in the kitchen, long after everyone was asleep. The rental house felt temporary, fragile. Her phone buzzed. It was the witness again. "I heard you sold the house." Small towns carried news like wind. "Yes," she replied. There was a pause. "I didn't mean for that." "You didn't cause it," she wrote. "I did." Another pause. "Do you hate me?" he asked. The question startled her. "No," she typed slowly. "I needed someone to make me stop pretending." The reply came after a long silence. "I didn't want to be that person again." "Again?" "I confronted the mechanic who fixed my sister's car." He lied. He never admitted it. "I wanted someone to admit it this time." She read the message twice. "I did," she wrote. "Yes," he replied. "You did." The acknowledgement felt hollow and heavy at the same time. In the months that followed, the external consequences stabilized. Fines were paid through a payment plan. The bridge repairs were settled partially through negotiation, but internally, nothing stabilized. One evening, Daniel sat across from her at the small kitchen table and said, "I need to ask you something." Her heart raced. "If something like this happened again, would you tell me immediately?" "Yes." "Even if it made you look incompetent?" She hesitated. The pause was barely a second, but it was enough. Daniel saw it. "That's what I'm afraid of," he said quietly. The truth sat between them, heavier than the accident itself. She wanted to correct the hesitation, to rewind the second that betrayed her. But Daniel had already seen it. He leaned back in the chair, studying her as if she were a problem he could not solve. "I didn't mean to pause," she said quickly. "But you did," he replied, not unkindly. "I was thinking. That's the problem," he said. "You always think first about how it reflects on you." The accusation was not loud. It didn't need to be. It slid into her chest and lodged there. "I've told the truth," she insisted. "I admitted everything." "Yes," he said. "After someone forced you to." The witness's shadow stretched across the kitchen table between them. "If he hadn't texted you," Daniel continued, "would you have told the police about the skipped step?" The question was precise, surgical. She opened her mouth, closed it. "I don't know," she whispered. Daniel nodded slowly, as if confirming a theory. "That's what I'm afraid of," he repeated. The room felt smaller. The rental house seemed to tighten around them, walls leaning in. "I'm trying," she said. "I know," he replied. "But trying after the damage is done doesn't make me feel safe." Safe. The word echoed Milo's question from weeks ago. "I just want to know if I should be scared." She stood up abruptly, unable to sit under Daniel's gaze any longer. "What do you want from me?" she demanded, her voice cracking despite her effort to keep it steady. "I want consistency," he said. "I want to believe that if something goes wrong, you won't manage it alone. You won't decide what's optional." The word optional felt radioactive now. "I won't," she said. "How do I know that?" he asked. There was no answer that wasn't another promise, and promises had lost their currency. Milo appeared in the doorway, drawn by the tension like he always was. He leaned against the frame, arms folded awkwardly, with the brace still visible beneath his sleeve. "Are you fighting again?" he asked quietly. "No," Mara said too quickly. Daniel didn't contradict her this time, but his silence was louder than any admission. Milo looked between them, his gaze lingering on her a fraction longer. "You said no more secrets." Her stomach tightened. She had forgotten that she had said that. In the hospital, when he was half-conscious and terrified. "There aren't," she said. He stepped into the kitchen. "Then why does it feel like there are?" The question was too mature for his age, too perceptive. Daniel rubbed his forehead. "Go to bed, Milo." "I'm not tired." "I am," Daniel replied. Milo hesitated, then turned back to Mara. "If something breaks again, will you tell Dad first?" The room went still. "Yes," she said carefully. "Even if you think you can fix it?" "Yes." He studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded and walked back down the hall. Daniel watched him go. "You see what you did?" "Yes," she whispered. "I see it every day." He stood and walked to the sink, turning on the faucet though there were no dishes to wash. The sound of running water filled the silence. "I don't want him growing up thinking he has to double-check everything you say," Daniel said without turning around. "Neither do I," she thought. but the words felt insufficient. The next week, the school called. Milo had gotten into a fight. They sat in the principal's office, the fluorescent lights buzzing faintly overhead. Milo stared at the floor, jaw clenched. "What happened?" Daniel asked. "He said my mom almost killed me," Milo muttered. The words hit Mara like a physical blow. He was repeating something he overheard from his parents, the principal explained. It escalated. Mara felt heat rush to her face. The accident had migrated beyond their home. It had become part of neighborhood gossip, a cautionary tale. "We'll handle it," Daniel said stiffly. In the car ride home, silence pressed in again. "I didn't start it," Milo said quietly. "I know," Daniel replied. Mara turned in her seat to face him. "Did you tell him what really happened?" Milo's eyes flicked to hers in the rearview mirror. "I said you made a mistake." The simplicity gutted her. "And what did he say?" she asked. "He said only stupid people make that kind of mistake." The word stupid echoed louder than reckless ever had. Daniel's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "What did you say?" he asked. "I said everyone makes mistakes," Milo replied. Mara felt tears sting her eyes. "Then he said some mistakes mean you shouldn't be in charge," Milo added. The accusation was no longer theoretical. It was embedded in her son's social world. That night, Milo refused to let her drive him anywhere, even to the grocery store. "I'll stay home," he said. "Why?" she asked. "I don't feel good." Daniel glanced at her, then back at Milo. "I'll take him." The pattern was solidifying. Later, alone in the rental kitchen, she stared at her reflection in the dark window. She tried to remember who she had been before the bridge, before the skipped clamp, before the hesitation. Her phone buzzed again. It was the witness. "I heard about the fight at school." Of course he had. News traveled. "Yes," she replied. "I'm sorry." The apology startled her. "You didn't spread it," she typed. "No, but I didn't keep quiet either." The words hung heavy. "What does that mean?" she wrote. "When people asked, I told them you admitted it. That you tried to fix it yourself." Her chest tightened. "Because that's what happened." The bluntness felt like a blade. "You could have left out the details," she whispered aloud, though he couldn't hear her. "Maybe," he replied after a pause. "But details are what people ignore until someone gets hurt." She felt anger flare for the first time in weeks. "You don't get to use my family as a lesson." There was a long silence. "You're right," he wrote finally. "I don't." The acknowledgement didn't soothe her. "You wanted me to tell the truth," she continued. "I did. But now it feels like you're making sure I never escape it." Another long pause. "I'm not trying to punish you," he wrote. "I just don't know how to stop seeing my sister in the back seat." The image struck her cold. Milo's small body in the back seat, the river below, the witness watching from behind. "We're all stuck in that moment," she replied. "Yes," he wrote. "Some of us don't get to leave it." She didn't answer. The next counseling session was worse than the previous ones. "He doesn't trust me," Mara said to the therapist. "My own son doesn't trust me." "What does that feel like?" the therapist asked gently. "Like I broke something that isn't mechanical." Daniel watched her, his expression guarded. "Trust is built through repeated experience," the therapist said. "It can be rebuilt." "How?" Mara demanded. "By not making another mistake?" "By being transparent," the therapist replied. "Especially when it's uncomfortable." Daniel spoke quietly. "She still hesitates." The therapist turned to her. "About what?" "About admitting when she doesn't know something." Mara felt cornered. "I don't hesitate." Daniel looked at her steadily. "You just did." The pattern was undeniable. Even here, in a safe room, she wanted to defend rather than confess uncertainty. "What scares you about saying, 'I don't know'?" the therapist asked. "That it makes me unreliable," Mara whispered. "And what does skipping a step make you?" Daniel asked softly. The question was not cruel, it was factual. The months stretched on. Small improvements surfaced. Milo's nightmares decreased. He laughed more often. But he still watched her when she did anything involving responsibility. One afternoon, she found him Googling how brakes work. "What are you doing?" she asked gently. "I just want to understand," he said. She sat beside him. "So do I." He glanced at her. "Do you?" "Yes." They watched a video together. This time, she didn't pretend to understand the technical terms. When she didn't, she said so. "I don't get that part," she admitted. Milo nodded. "Me neither." The moment was small, but it felt like a crack in the wall. That evening, Daniel noticed. "You said you didn't understand something," he observed. "Yes. And nothing happened." He studied her carefully. "How did it feel?" "Terrifying," she admitted. "And relieving." He nodded slowly. Weeks later, the rental's landlord called about a minor plumbing issue. "I'll fix it," Mara said automatically. Daniel looked at her. She paused. No, she corrected herself. We'll call a professional. The word professional felt like surrender and safety intertwined. Daniel's shoulders relaxed slightly. Okay, but trust did not rush back in. It crept. One evening, Milo asked, "Can you drive me to Ethan's house?" She hesitated, surprised. "Dad can't," he added quickly. "He's working late." She felt the weight of the request. "If you're not comfortable," she began. "I want you to," he said. The statement was cautious but sincere. She nodded. Okay. The drive was quiet. She kept both hands on the wheel. Obeyed every speed limit precisely. At a red light, Milo said, "You look scared." "I am," she admitted. "Of driving? Of messing up?" He thought about that. "You didn't mess up just by driving." She glanced at him. "No? No," he said. "You messed up because you thought you couldn't." The simplicity of his analysis stunned her. At Ethan's house, he unbuckled slowly. "Thanks," he said. "For what?" "For not pretending." She swallowed. That night, Daniel asked how it went. "She drove well," Milo answered before she could. Daniel looked at her. "I was careful," she said. He nodded. Good. But the nod wasn't full trust. It was cautious acknowledgement. Later, in bed, Daniel said quietly, "I'm not leaving." The words landed heavily. She turned toward him. "Are you sure?" "No," he admitted, "but I'm not leaving tonight." The honesty was fragile. She reached for his hand. He let her take it, but his grip was tentative. Trust was not a switch, it was sediment. Layers built slowly. Yet, beneath the fragile rebuilding, something else lingered. The knowledge that one decision had altered their trajectory permanently. One night, months after the accident, she received another message from the witness. "I'm moving." The words startled her. "Where?" she typed. "Another city. I can't keep living near the bridge." She felt an unexpected pang. "Are you okay?" she asked. "As much as I can be," he replied. There was a long pause before another message appeared. "You changed something." Her pulse quickened. "What do you mean?" "You admitted it." "The mechanic never did." "That matters." The acknowledgement felt strange. Not absolution, but recognition. "I'm still living with it," she wrote. "So am I," he replied. She stared at the screen. "I hope you find peace," she typed. There was no immediate response. Eventually, a final message came. "I hope you keep telling the truth, especially when it's uncomfortable." She set the phone down. In the quiet of the rental house, she listened to Daniel's steady breathing and Milo's faint snore down the hall. Nothing was fixed. Nothing was fully broken either. But the accident was no longer a single event on a bridge. It was a thread woven through every decision, every hesitation, every admission of ignorance. And as she lay awake, she understood that the hardest part wasn't the fine, or the move, or even the fracture in her son's arm. It was the pause, the second of hesitation that revealed who she had been, and the long, slow work of becoming someone else. It did not happen in a single revelation. It happened in small humiliations. 3 weeks after the witness moved away, Mara burned dinner. It was nothing dramatic. Just chicken left in the oven 10 minutes too long because she was distracted answering an email. The smoke alarm shrieked. Milo ran into the kitchen. Daniel followed. "It's fine," she said quickly, grabbing a towel and waving it beneath the alarm. Daniel opened windows. Milo stood still, watching her hands. "Did you set a timer?" he asked. The question was not accusatory. It was procedural. "No," she admitted. Daniel glanced at her. Not angry, just alert. Milo nodded slowly. "Maybe you should next time." She almost defended herself. Almost said she'd cooked thousands of meals without burning them. Almost insisted this was normal. Instead, she said, "You're right." The words tasted different now. Less like defeat, more like discipline. Later, Daniel said quietly, "That was good." "What was?" "You didn't argue." She sat at the small rental table, staring at the charred edges of the baking tray, soaking in the sink. "I wanted to." "I know." They sat in silence for a while. "I keep thinking about that second," she said eventually. Daniel didn't need clarification. "The pause," he replied. "Yes." He leaned back in his chair. "I think about it too." She looked up at him. "I replay the moment you looked at the wheel before Milo," he said, "over and over." "I know. And sometimes," he continued, voice low, "I wonder what you would have done if the car hadn't stopped against the railing." The question chilled her. "If we had gone over," he finished. Her throat tightened. "We didn't." "I know," he said. "But I think about it." She understood. Trauma rarely confines itself to what happened. It multiplies through what almost did. "Do you blame me for that too?" she asked. He hesitated. I blame you for the breaks, he said carefully. I don't blame you for gravity. The distinction was strange, but she accepted it. Weeks later, Milo's therapist suggested a family session. I want Milo to express what he hasn't said, the therapist explained. Mara's stomach tightened. In the softly lit room, Milo sat between them on a couch that seemed too small. What scares you most about the accident? The therapist asked him gently. Milo looked at his hands. That it could happen again. With the car? She asked. With anything, he replied. Mara felt the weight of that word. Can you explain? The therapist encouraged. If Mom thinks she knows how to do something, Milo said slowly. I don't know if she really does. The sentence was precise. Not cruel, just honest. Mara inhaled carefully. You can ask me, she said. He shook his head. Sometimes you don't know you don't know. The insight stunned the room into silence. Daniel's hand tightened on his knee. The therapist nodded slowly. That's very thoughtful, Milo. Mara swallowed. You're right, she said. Milo looked at her, surprised. You're right, she repeated. Sometimes I don't know what I don't know. The admission felt like standing naked in cold air. He studied her face for signs of defense. There were none. What are you going to do about that? He asked. The question felt enormous. I'm going to ask more, she said. And assume less. The therapist watched carefully. Milo nodded slowly. Okay, it wasn't forgiveness. But it was a condition. After the session, Daniel walked beside her in the parking lot. That mattered, he said. I know. You didn't flinch. I wanted to. He gave a small, tired smile. I know. At home that evening, Milo asked if they could bake cookies. She hesitated. Daniel noticed. We can all do it together. Milo nodded eagerly. They stood in the kitchen, measuring flour carefully. When Mara wasn't sure about the temperature conversion, she said so. I don't remember if it's 350 or 375 for this oven, she admitted. Daniel checked the recipe again. 350. Okay, she said. Milo watched the exchange. Not critically, just absorbing it. When the cookies came out evenly golden, Milo grinned. See? Teamwork. The word lingered, but the external world had not forgotten. 6 months after the accident, Mara applied for a part-time position at a local community center. Administrative work, nothing complex. The director called her into his office. We ran a background check, he said gently. There's a misdemeanor for negligent operation. Her chest tightened. I've reviewed the details, he continued. I don't think you're dangerous, but parents might. The implication was clear. I understand, she said. He hesitated. We can't move forward. She walked out into the bright afternoon sun, feeling exposed. The accident had followed her into employment. When she told Daniel, he nodded slowly. I'm sorry, he said. So am I. For you, he clarified. She almost laughed. It's not unfair, she said. It's consistent. Daniel watched her carefully. You don't sound angry. I am, she admitted. But not at them. He didn't ask at whom. That night, Milo asked why she looked tired. I didn't get a job I wanted, she said. Because of the breaks? He asked. Yes. He absorbed that quietly. That's not fair, he said. She smiled faintly. Fair isn't part of it. Then what is? He asked. Consequence. He frowned slightly, as if trying to weigh the word. Are you going to keep trying? He asked. Yes. The answer was immediate this time. Daniel heard it from the hallway. Months later, Daniel's firm offered him a transfer to another city, a promotion, better pay, a fresh start. He told her over dinner. It would mean moving, he said. Mara's heart skipped. Why now? She asked. It's an opportunity. And maybe we need distance from here. From the bridge, from the neighbors, from the gossip. Do you want to go? She asked. He looked at her carefully. Do you? The question felt loaded. If we move, she said slowly. Is it because of me? It's because of us, he replied. Milo listened quietly from the table. Would I change schools? He asked. Yes, Daniel said. Milo looked down at his plate. Do you want to? Mara asked him. He hesitated. Would people there know? No, Daniel said. Milo looked up. Then maybe. The simplicity of it hurt. That night, Mara lay awake, thinking about escape, about whether a new city meant erasing or evading. Daniel spoke into the darkness. I don't want to run. Then why go? She asked. Because staying feels like we're defined by one mistake. She understood. Are we? She asked. He didn't answer immediately. Not entirely, he said finally. But it's heavy here. Weeks of discussion followed. Practicalities, schools, rent. One evening, Milo asked, If we move, will you still check things? Yes, she said. Even if no one is watching? The question was sharp. Yes, she repeated. He nodded slowly. The transfer was accepted. Packing again felt different this time. Not like loss, like transition. Before leaving, Mara drove alone to the bridge. She parked at the side and stepped out. The railing had been repaired. Fresh metal gleamed in the sunlight. Cars passed behind her, indifferent. She stood there, staring at the curve. Her phone buzzed. A message from the witness. He had not texted in months. I heard you're moving. Small towns had long ears. Yes, she replied. There was a pause. Running? The word stung. No, she typed carefully. Continuing. Another pause. Are you different? He asked. She stared at the question. Yes, she wrote. I say I don't know more often. There was a long silence before his reply. That's a start. She looked at the railing again. I still think about that day, she wrote. So do I, he replied. Do you still see your sister? She asked. Do you still see me? She added after a moment. There was a long pause. Less. The word surprised her. What do you see? She typed. Someone trying. The acknowledgement was simple. Not absolution. But not condemnation either. Thank you, she wrote. He didn't reply. She stood there a few minutes longer, then returned to the car. As she drove away, she noticed she was not gripping the wheel too tightly. The new city was louder, busier, impersonal. They rented an apartment on the 3rd floor. Milo's room overlooked a parking lot instead of a yard. On the first morning, she burned toast again. Milo laughed this time. Timer, he reminded her. She set one. Daniel started at his new firm. The hours were longer. The pay was better. One evening, Milo asked if she could help him with a science project involving circuits. I don't know how, she said immediately. He blinked. I mean, she continued, I'll learn with you, but I don't know yet. He grinned slightly. Okay. They sat at the table watching tutorials together. When something didn't work, she didn't hide it. I'm not sure why that failed, she said. Maybe we wired it wrong, he suggested. Probably, she agreed. They fixed it together. Later, Daniel watched from the doorway. You look comfortable, he observed. I'm not, she admitted. I'm careful. He nodded. Trust did not return like a flood. It returned like a tide. Gradual, imperceptible, until one day the shoreline looked different. One evening, months after the move, Daniel handed her the car keys. I have a late call, he said. Can you pick Milo up? The gesture was small, monumental. She took the keys without overthinking. Yes. Milo climbed into the back seat after school. Are the brakes okay? He asked, out of habit. Yes, she said. Did someone else check? Yes, she replied. And I asked questions. He nodded. At a stoplight, he leaned forward. I don't think you're stupid, he said quietly. The words stunned her. Why? She asked. Because stupid people don't admit things. Her throat tightened. Thank you, she whispered. That night, Daniel said quietly in bed, I didn't think we'd get here. Here? She asked. Driving without panic. She let out a soft breath. Neither did I. He reached for her hand. This time, his grip was firmer. I still remember the pause, he said. So do I. But I also remember today, he added. The two memories coexisted. Nothing erased the bridge. Nothing erased the wheel. Nothing erased the skipped clamp. But they were no longer the only frame. One evening, a year after the accident, Milo asked if they could visit a lake near their new apartment. Mara hesitated. Daniel noticed. I'll drive, he offered. Milo shook his head. No, I want Mom to. The request settled heavily. She looked at Daniel. He nodded once. She took the keys. At the lake, Milo ran ahead toward the water. Mara stood for a moment, watching him. Daniel stepped beside her. Are you okay? He asked. No, she said honestly. But I'm here. He squeezed her shoulder. Milo turned and waved. She walked toward him. The water was calm, reflective. She knew the accident would always exist. The record, the fine, the story told in whispers. But as she watched Milo skip stones across the surface, she understood something that had taken a year to form. Becoming someone else did not mean erasing who she had been. It meant not defending her worst second, as if it defined her best ones. Daniel stood beside her. You didn't look at the wheel first, he said quietly. She glanced at him. I didn't look at the wheel at all, she replied. He nodded. The memory remained. The consequence remained. The caution remained. But so did the choice to pause for a different reason. Not to protect her pride, but to protect the people who were still standing beside her.